It's Local Edition. Brad Pomerance here, and we're joined today by Mike Gipson. He is a member of the California State Assembly. And recently, sir, we had a very difficult week in this nation. We were mourning, and still are mourning, the loss of 7 lives. 2 lives that were lost as a result of guns shot by police officers, and 5 lives that were lost as a result of guns shot by a civilian. It's hard to even talk about, but I want to get a sense from you how you're feeling in the wake of Dallas, Baton Rouge, and Minnesota.
Well, first of all, I want to say my prayers and condolences goes out to the family members who lost loved ones. Both those individuals who were in Baton Rouge, Minnesota, and also the 5 officers who also lost their lives in Dallas.
And I remind our viewers, Assemblyman Gipson was a police officer.
Absolutely.
And an African-American police officer.
Absolutely.
Which is relevant.
Right. And so I can relate in terms of those men and women who served with those 5 officers. Now the loss, the absence of, that individual who they saw day in and day out.
Can you, it's hard to talk about, but I think it's important. I'm Anglo-American. My interaction with law enforcement has always been positive.
Sure.
You're African-American, you've been a law enforcement officer, and even you, I understand, have had tricky interactions with law enforcement.
Sure. Me being African-American, driving in my car, being pulled over by police.
Not in a police uniform at that moment.
Not in a police uniform, but as a sworn officer on my way to work. It was certainly, an experience. One I wish I'd never have to ever live again. And the approach was different because I was African American and the kind of car that I was driving. And so these are these are situations that takes place, in our community. But I want to be also mindful that we don't want to paint the entire, law enforcement with the same brush. In every profession, there are individuals who should not be in that profession, whether it's someone who is a bad educator, someone who's a bad police officer, judge, you name it. We have those bad apples.
But here's the thing. I would never, ever condone the actions of the perpetrator in Dallas. Completely inexcusable.
Absolutely.
What he did.
Absolutely.
Yet there is a frustration that caused his behavior, his inexcusable behavior. What do we do about the underlying frustrations that are driving people like him?
I think we, have a conversation, a real honest conversation with the community and law enforcement, because there has to be different approaches, how one approach individuals on the streets, in their cars and things by law enforcement, and also what we must not do while being confronted by law enforcement, because again, we can look at situations and try to handle those situations a lot better.
But here's what's upsetting to me. I've heard about the talk amongst African-American fathers and their sons. And the talk is, I guess, how you interact with law enforcement. Why do you have to have that? That's not right. It's upsetting.
It's not right, but it's the world we live in right now, that we have to make sure that, when we encounter law enforcement, that we comply with their directives.
But I don't have the talk.
Nature. Right.
So this is America, sir. See,
but it's systematic, and it's what we see on television as relates to African Americans. So me as a father who has 2 male sons, I want to make sure that they ever encounter law enforcement, that they should comply with their requests
but so should
and also
my
demands
children
as well.
But then why do you have to have an extra talk?
Well, I don't think it's an extra talk. I think it's just a talk to begin. I think it's the beginning stages of making sure. It's the same thing when a young man go out on a first date, how they should treat someone. It's the same thing when you're confronting
kinder than
with
me. I mean,
law
I'm more.
enforcement.
I find it very frustrating that there are differing standards. The other challenge that our nation faces is our approach to guns. This incident occurred in Texas.
Right.
I always recall that last year, California banned the use of concealed weapons on campuses. Texas approved the use of concealed weapons on campuses.
Right. It's mind-boggling. Again, California leads the nation in terms of real gun control, and we will continue to do that. I had a gun piece of legislation that the governor vetoed, Assembly Bill 1673.
Right, this dealt with ghost guns.
Ghost guns, and these guns are untraceable, undetectable. You can make a gun at home. The Department of Justice, no one knows this exists because there's no serial number. You have no background check, and my bill would prohibit someone from making such a thing so that won't wind up on the streets. In 2013, a 23-year-old young man was rejected at a gun store from purchasing a gun, went home, made a gun, and killed 6 people in Santa Monica.
Do you have a sense as to why the governor vetoed your bill? Was the veto message clear?
It was unclear, and that's why we're going to have a conversation to find out exactly what it is. But I won't stop trying.
Right.
I won't stop trying and advocate to making sure that we keep guns out of the hands of people who should not have guns, and making sure that it's safe in our communities. And so I will continue to advocate for that.
But the challenge that we face is we in California, we in the nation, we look at guns so differently. Even in parts of California, I mean, the Second Amendment is seen very differently by different people in different regions. And this conversation is so charged.
Right, but again, the legislation that the governor have signed, it will not prohibit or diminish the Second Amendment. What it does, it restricts gun usage and access to guns of people who should not have these particular guns, like AR-15s and AK-47s. Why do you need those kinds of guns?
Okay, but
those are for war.
But here's the challenge. In California, we have strict laws, but we know the shooters in San Bernardino, they got their gun through Arizona.
Sure.
And we know the federal Congress would not pass legislation to prevent those on the no-fly list from getting guns.
That's why it's important that Congress do what they're being paid to do, and that is have a debate on the floor about gun control in America.
It didn't go well for the proponents of gun control.
Unfortunately. But we can't stop trying. We still have to continue to put this in the forefront because these incidences will continue to happen, and we need Congress to act because Congress represents us all in America, and we need to make sure we have good gun control in America. So
in the wake of Dallas, in the wake of Orlando, in the wake of San Bernardino, in the wake of Paris and Brussels, and Boko Haram in Nigeria, it goes on and on. Where do you go with these challenges as a legislator in the 6th largest economy in the world?
Well, again, continue to put forth good legislation. Continue to have and encourage Congress to do the right thing, making sure that we have good gun legislation, not only for California, who's been leading the nation, but also for America to have a bill that a president can sign into law that will restrict the use and the access of people who should not have these weapons of mass destruction. Now, that doesn't mean that we can stop other entities from coming into the United States of America, bringing on, their guns and things of that nature. But certainly we can make it difficult for those in America to making sure that you should not have guns, not permitted to have guns, not have access to guns. Individuals who have mental disabilities should not have access to guns. We want to make sure that they don't have those access to those weapons of mass destruction in our community.
His name is Mike Gipson. He is a member of the California State Assembly representing significant portions of Los Angeles County. My name is Brad Pomerance. Please stay safe. This is Local Edition.